Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Briarcrest Christian School Student Ministries podcast. My name is Jason Ellis, and I am the Director of Student Ministries here at Briarcrest. And we, as always, are so excited that you have decided to join us, and we've got a very special episode for you. I am joined today with the Lee Smith, the Coach Lee Smith. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background as to what we're going to be doing, I'm going to turn the reins over to him in just a second and let him share with you guys. But just over the past couple of weeks, he has shared with both our middle school, our high school, and our staff just what the Lord did in his life this summer in keeping with our theme verse, just talking about, as Jesus says in John 16:33, that in this world we will have tribulation, but take heart, he has overcome the world, that we can have the peace in the midst of that. And so Coach Smith had a very interesting summer, or at least a part of it, probably not as he had planned it to go, but yet his story has been such an encouragement to so many of us, myself included. And so we just wanted to get him here and let him share this with you, those of you who might not have had the opportunity to hear it here at school. So Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, I want to hand the reins over to you and just kind of let you share what you've been through this summer and how the Lord's spoken into that.
Thank you, Jason, and I appreciate the privilege and the opportunity to just share. You mentioned that my summer was interesting and quite challenging. It all began, as I said, right at the end of school. When we finished school, May the 22nd, and right after Labor Day, I began to feel some symptoms. One being I was experiencing some backaches, and after backaches, the chills, from the chills to the coughing, and then finally to a point where I was unable to breathe as I should. So at that point, I contact Dr. Cassandra Howard, and she instructed me that I should go to the hospital immediately. So I got there to Germantown Methodist, and when I got there, of course, they gave the COVID test, and I was found to be positive. Spent some time in the ICU. I was transported then to Baptist East and spent some time in ICU there. And from there, I was put in a regular room. So my time was about 14 days in the hospital. And lost quite a bit of weight, which I needed to, 26 pounds. But it was challenging for me, to say the least. It was a very scary time in my life. I didn't know how this would turn out. You know, you hear so much about COVID, and at the time, I asked my doctor, he was over the disease, he's a disease specialist, and I asked him, I said, hey, am I going to make it through this? And I remember the words that he spoke that really frightened me. He says, well, you're diabetic, you deal with hypertension. He said, you have double pneumonia and you got COVID. And he said, none of those complement each other. He says, what we're going to do, we're going to put on our best boots, our hiking boots, because we got a pretty tough hill to climb. And that was scary. But the part, too, about being in that, it was a time where you can't see anybody, you can't have family visit and all those kind of things. And it was a difficult time, and but it was so true. That COVID is real, it's not a joke, and we need to continue to take it seriously and do all those things that can help us to get through these moments. But I'm grateful. God brought me through. It was constant prayer and, meditating on scripture, praying for healing and all that. And I knew there were so many people that were texting and emailing me through the school. I do know that Mr. Sullivan has sent out a text that hold the text and the phone calls because I needed the rest. but it was just so encouraging to have colleagues like yourself and administrative staff and everybody, even some of my students sent cards and was emailing and calling. And those are the times that get you through the tough times, when you got people that are supportive, my church members, pastors, you name it. I was inundated with cards and emails and text messages, but I learned through that I needed to hold on to who was holding on to me, and God had me during that time, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for what He's done in my life.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate one of the things that you've shared as you shared that is you were in isolation, right? Like it wasn't something where everybody who wanted to come see you could visit you. I mean, you were stuck alone for a long time, and I know even I don't know who would be watching this, but I mean, there might be some people that are, because of pre-existing conditions or just because of other reasons, whatever they might be alone, or even some of our students, as we've talked about, feel alone behind the mask. And you just mentioned holding on to the one who's holding on to you. Is there any other word of encouragement you might give to somebody out there, having been in a situation that, not only did you talked about like you're battling COVID, you're literally battling COVID, but you're also alone, and there it feels alone. Even though we got prayer warriors and people reaching out to you via text, you feel alone. So is there any other just kind of word of encouragement you might give to somebody who's in that position right now?
Well, certainly, you mentioned about being in isolation, all that, and as I said before, even in that room, the only time somebody came in was when they were checking on different things and looked like they was putting on space suits going somewhere. But it can be a very lonely time, and for those who are feeling that way, and you get through those moments, you have to lean and depend on Christ. You have to, and I think you have to take Him at His word. His word is true, and His satisfaction are guaranteed. So you have to hold on to that and hold on to Him, and at the same time, this is where I think is so critical that you have family and you have supporting cast. I have an unbelievable family. I really do, and I think sometime all throughout the day there was encouraging text messages and all that. So I would say, just know Him and know He knows you.
Yeah, and I think that's good too, because you're talking about trusting in His Word. And I think for so many of us, there's a need to understand that we should trust in His Word when times are good, so that we have something to lean on when times are bad, right? I mean, you got home, experienced the recovery, getting your strength back. You mentioned losing weight. That's probably not the way you would have wanted to sign up to lose weight. But just what meant a lot to you just as you got home, got back on your feet, started to feel better? I know you mentioned some students might have come by and were reaching out to you. What meant a lot to you in that season?
I did. It was so amazing at the response that how people responded to my trial, my tribulation. It was amazing how they responded. I got home and it was tons of cards that were sent to me that I got that really made a difference, text messages and all those kind of things. But I received one, the post lady dropped something at my door and knocked on the door. So I go to the door to get that, and it was a ball. And it had stamps and everything all over it, and had from the Odell family to Coach Lee Smith. And on that ball, it says, "Coach Smith, we're praying for you. We know you will bounce back from this." Nice. Things like that. And that ball sits right there on my desk. I see it every day, and it's just a constant encouragement, of where I've come from, but knowing that God has led me through this.
Yeah, and I think with that, and I'd love for you to speak into this as well, one of the things we tried to tell to both our staff and our students, really remind ourselves, is that we have an opportunity to encourage one another. And I mean, maybe somebody made a difference in your life and they didn't even think about beyond just the act of sending you a card that they did that, but that meant so much to you. So maybe speaking of the lives of some of the people that will be watching this who, you know, they are in an okay place. I mean, we're all living in a COVID world. I mean, that's just the reality that we're in. But maybe they have the ability to feel a little more comfortable than other people do. Maybe speaking of that, how they could be an encouragement to somebody.
Well, you know, we are called not to, to not be just in and of ourselves. I think there's a scripture in Galatians that talks about, and Philippians that talks about that, forgive me, when it talks about that we should consider others as being just as important as ourselves. And but the thing about it, we have to ask the Lord each day to grant us those opportunities, give us a chance to speak into someone else's life, give me somebody, allow me to be able to encourage somebody along the way. We have no idea, Coach, who the person next to us, what they're going through. We have no idea. And each day, if we're sensitive to that and we ask and we look at opportunity, I may notice something with the student or even with the colleague that I can just maybe just take a card and write a simple note that says, I'm praying for you. Those are things that sometimes propel us over that little hill that we just left and came to, that we just left from, I'm sorry.
But even us pausing to have this conversation has just been a reminder of the gospel, right? Like, the world's swirling around us. We're getting school geared back up. We got students everywhere, as you can see. And just for us to pause and talk about trusting in God, the peace that comes in tribulation. And sometimes we don't even think, like you said, the person sitting next to us might just need to be reminded that there's a God out there that cares about him and we can be the hands and feet of that God. So Coach, okay, so I've mentioned as we've done this that when you were sick with COVID, it did not take long for word to get out that you were sick, and you have been around this school for a couple of years. It's fair to say, just a few, but the legacy that you have left has been amazing. There's a lot of students out there that have graduated maybe decades ago that still just cared about you, wanted to hear how you're doing. So fill them in. How have you been since all of this? How are you doing this school year? How are things going in your life now?
Well, things are going great. First of all, I'm just glad to be back in school, period. And also to get to see the students and to think of where this could have been as to where we are. I'm grateful. But it's been going good. You cannot believe the number of students and teachers and everybody would just say, how you doing? You're doing okay, that kind of thing. But I'm doing well. I still have just a little limp in my right foot, but other than that, I'm walking, I'm breathing, I'm able to function every day. So I feel real good. I feel blessed. I still have a little ways to go. My doctors informed me that sometimes it takes a while for this to get back to the energy level and all of that. I don't want to get back to the weight, okay? That I don't want to do.
You're okay with leaving 27 pounds?
Yeah, well, I can leave.
Yeah.
Although some of it found its way back home. But the rest of it, I hope it stayed lost.
Well, I think I speak for everyone as we start to wrap this up. We reached out to you, and I remember when I heard the news, I was up here at the high school when you had gone to the hospital, and I had heard that you weren't feeling well. We didn't know at the time it was COVID, but we started praying for you, and I think that's because you have been such an influence on so many people's lives throughout these past couple of years. And you've said it before. I mean, and I know you said it in chapel, you said it in service. It's about Jesus. It's not about Lee Smith. And I'll give you a second to say that as we wrap up, because I know you're going to want to come behind me and say that. But I think what has happened is so many people have seen Christ in you, and they have felt the love of Christ through you. And we have wanted to continue to pray for you through this because you've meant so much to us. You've been faithful to serve the Lord here at Briarcrest for so many years. So I appreciate that. But Coach, just as we wrap up, are there any last words you'd like to give? Maybe to the person who graduated 15, 20 years ago that just wants to know how you're doing, how how they can be praying for you, or just a word of encouragement to that person.
Thank you. Coach, you can't believe the number of students. I had it was interesting, my occupational therapist came by to do an assessment of me, and her name is Karen Herron, and Karen graduated in 2003, and she was in my homeroom for 4 years, and we got to reconnect, and just kind of, she's been periodically checking on me, just students that graduated in the early, late 80s and those kind of things. But, that's my prayer. That's my prayer, is that I will walk worthy of the vocation that I've been called to. And I really believe that sometimes God does allow things to happen in our life in order to conform us to His will and to the image. But at the same time, I also believe that there's a calling on our lives as teachers, as coaches, to not only just be a teacher, but I think we've got to be able to have that type of lasting impression on people. And I hope that my life is somewhat an example of what Christ is like. I've got a long ways to go. I'm not there. And my prayer is that every day that He would give me another day to be more like Him. And that's my goal. But to all of the students and all of you who are watching, thank you so much. Coach mentioned the impact that I've had. That's my prayer, but I can tell you, you guys have had far more of an impact on my life, Briarcrest, than I would ever have on you. And each day when I drive through these gates, I count it as a privilege, as a blessing to be here, and never ever want to take that for granted. So thank you, and I just, let's stay healthy, let's stay safe, let's do all those things that would allow us to be who we are, and so we can continue to be the hand and feet of Jesus.
All right, Coach, well, I think that's a great way to end it. I want to thank you again for being here. This was fun, getting to sit down and just take time out of the day to do this. And hey, as we're signing off, just want to remind you that we would love for you to subscribe to this podcast across whatever platforms we may or may not be. Coach Smith is an avid listener, has subscribed across all the platforms. But once again, thank you so much for joining us for the Briarcrest Christian School Student Ministries podcast. We hope to see you soon.